America. And we also host the Tourism Sustainable Observatory that is integrated into the WTO network of sustainable tourism observatories. And we are also involved at the European level with the European Union. We support the transition pathway for tourism. And yeah, and that's a little bit about us. And then going to the topic, why we are doing this once the presentation is over. It was quite a process for us to start to realize that we have to do something if we really want to go farther in our research. So the initial questions were very clear. As everyone, we have some PhD students, master students here attending today. You always start your approach to the tourism system and the tourism phenomenon that is open, complex, dynamic, and so on and so forth, studying different models. No matter what the model is, no matter the approach, it can be economic business, it can be geographic, it can be sociological, no matter what, at the end, it's about the tourists, right? And how the tourists are connected with the destinations, of course, the natural resources, the built environment, and the tourism industry, and the governance, and so on and so forth. This is just an example of a tourism model, the one from Ritchie, Goldner, and McIntosh. But yeah, so many models, no matter what. The conclusion is clear. We have to understand, it's a very straightforward conclusion. We have to understand the tourists and how they connect with other tourists, with the residents, employees, and residents in general, and with the destination. So that was our first concern. And we realized that applying the traditional techniques, we had some limitations. And then we kept studying forward the classic customer experience. And even like at the end of the last century, it became more popular with Pine and Gilmore and the transformation of the tourism resources into experiences, right? What we were, let's say, all involved in trying to understand the customer experience. And this is the classic example of transforming a resource into a product, a service, or an experience, and how to deal with that. So again, we realized that we have to understand actually that customer experience, applying non-traditional methodologies to really get an in-depth understanding of that about that phenomenon. And yeah, and then following this example of coffee, of transformation of the resource into an experience, that I'm not going to explain that. You already know that, that's for sure. But basically that you transform a resource into an experience, and in doing so, you add value, of course, to that resource, and the willingness to pay is higher. And basically, if you pay $1 per kilogram for a resource, it is there is an exponential growth when you transform that into an experience, right? And the same happens to when you add additional levels of information here. And for instance, with this type of coffee, right, people pay even more. And the question is, why? What's happening there? What is happening inside the person to really being able to pay more for something that is not coffee anymore? It's not about coffee. And we keep going with that example. And we see, for instance, in Colombia, they developed that Juan Valdez experience and that brand, and all the identity and all the values that are immersed into that coffee brand. And in the case of Canada, right, they have also Tim Hortons that is about also part of the national identity somehow. So it's not about coffee anymore. So we didn't really understand why people were behaving the way they were. And in the case of the Canary Islands, we also have coffee, right? And we have a local grown coffee. And the price the tourists pay per kilogram is about 70, 80 euros per kilogram. What you will say, well, that's crazy, right? Normally they don't buy a kilogram, they buy a package that can be half a pound or whatever. But we didn't really understand why is this happening. Yeah, it's a customer experience. They go to the coffee plantation, they get a better understanding of the experience, the plant, and the process. But what is really happening inside a customer? Why is that happening? And what is the relationship between the cognition and the emotional part? So those were the questions we had at the very beginning. And again, we can apply that to any tourism product. It can be hiking, or it can be stargazing. We did a few researches on stargazing. We applied that customer journey methodology. Yeah, we were analyzing how to improve it and so on, but still, we had many limitations to understand the customer experience. So that's why we, one straightforward uh, conclusion is that we have to understand not only the cognitive part, but also the emotions. So we had to do something to understand, to better understand that emotional part. And the conclusion was that, the tourists are the real architects of their experience and emotions. We cannot develop or render the customer experience because they are actually the architects of their experience and their own emotions. So, wow, how can we then really analyze that experience? So, we had to change the way we analyze, the way we do research to get to know how they are building those experiences and emotions. It's not about us and our service escape and all that stuff. Obviously, that's important, but we have to go further and understand what's going on inside. Then, of course, we had been doing a lot of research about image, destination image, and that social reality that it's a construction, again, made by the tourists about the destinations, right? About their the places they visit. And again, as we all know, we have the cognitive and the emotional part blended all together, generating that emotional and cognitive final perception that eventually it's driven to a behavior. So yeah, so we started analyzing also the projected image and the content because yeah, tourism is a visual industry. We know that. So we wanted to better understand how we are communicating and disseminating that abstract concept of destination and the customer experience. For instance, when we analyze a pictorial element, it can be a picture, we were analyzing the content, right? Content analysis. This case is about people. What kind of people are you portraying in that picture? And you can also analyze the activities they are conducting in that picture. You can analyze also the location of that picture, right? So we started to do that first in a traditional way, then using artificial intelligence to analyze the content. And the challenge was even more complex because it's not only about the projected image of the destination or the company that you are generating, it's also about the user generated content, as you know, reviews and so on. and becoming much more complicated with the artificial intelligent content that is endless. So at the very end is, wow, we have a huge amount of content that is out there, and it's yeah, it's a stimuli, of course, but at the very end, we don't really understand how the customer, how the tourists are processing all that information, and eventually what is the final impact. In addition to that, we also were analyzing the network. Yeah, the tourists are connected to other tourists, they are connected to the residents, they're connected to different places, and all that social network analysis. That's another technique we all have been using for a while now. And yeah, and we got some very interesting insights, but still we were not able to understand what was happening, let's say, inside the customer. So this is a little bit about our transition approach to neurotourism and neuromarketing, and why we've been doing this transition, right? So at the very end, we, as we all know, the traditional techniques are very relevant, very significant, but they have limitations, right? And they basically focus mostly on the conscious and cognitive part. And some of those limitations, as you all know, is that, for instance, if we are trying to measure emotions and we use a traditional survey, we are asking them to report in a cognitive way something that was not actually a cognitive
Traditional
process.
techniques aim for the 5% of conscious decision making. Neuromarketing aims for the 95%.
Yeah. All right. It was like a simultaneous translation or something, right? Kind of weird. Yeah. So yeah, we have that conscious part that we can normally analyze with the traditional techniques, but somehow the subconscious that are actually very relevant, as you know, those studies that says that approximately 90% of our behavior is subconscious. So we need to analyze that part. Again, with the traditional techniques, sometimes we are analyzing more the memories and not what actually happened at that time. When we analyze the customer experience and we ask them about something that happened, I don't know, a day ago, 3 hours ago, it's about something that it's in their memory. And that process is also very relevant, but it's not actually what was happening at that specific moment of consuming the product or the service. So yeah, we actually were facing those limitations, and we ended up with a conclusion that we have to make an effort to integrate also neuroscience in our analysis to be able to go farther in our research. And yeah, the brain is a network, and it is connected through the senses with our environment, right? So that's the way we have to generate our own reality and our own social reality, and it can be more a personal psychology or more a social psychology, but whatever it is something that we build, right, with that blend of emotion and cognition. So all in all, the idea was clear. We have to better analyze how we integrate our relationship with other tourists, with the residents, with the destination through our senses, and we create those realities that are in our mind. And actually one discussion we had is, okay, but we are not neuroscientifics. We will not be able to add any value from the neuroscience point of view, and that's not the goal, right? Yeah, and we thought, okay, but in order to better understand the tourism phenomenon, which is very complex, we have to use these techniques. Besides, tourism is quite paradigmatic in two ways, I would say. One is that it means a transition between work and leisure, and that's quite a significant psychological change in our mind from work to holidays, right? Leisure. And even when it's more blur now, and we say leisure and all that stuff, we're on holidays, but still we're working, and we're working, but we do some holidays and so on and so on. But yeah, but uh, it's quite a transition between one word and another. And another key issue related to tourism is that uh, that cultural shock that we suffer when traveling. And obviously, the more experienced the tourist is, the less likely that happens. But we change our environment, and because of that brain plasticity and so on, when we are in another culture, another country, we are exposed to meaningful changes in our perception and our reality. And that's why we also thought, okay, tourism can add value. The research we do in tourism can add value because it's relevant in those uh, uh, significant changes that we have from work to leisure, and from the cultural perspective and that radical shock that we have when we travel to another culture. So yeah, that was one of the conclusions. And that's why we thought, yeah, we have to think outside the box. Again, you'll know this classic exercise, and that force you to think in a different way to solve the problem out. And the conclusion we got here is that to be able to think outside the box, we actually have to think inside the box. Let's say we have to be able to understand the tourist. We have to get a closer and more relevant understanding of, let's say, their brain and their heart, right? That emotional and cognitive process that happens inside the tourist. So that was the conclusion. And in that way, being able to get more information inside the box will allow us to get a better understanding also outside the box, and how we connect, how the tourist is connecting with those interactions with the rest of the tourists, with the residents, and with the destination. So that was our uh, conclusion. And because of that, we ended up, okay, what can we do? At the very end, we were kind of confused. It's like, okay, we don't even know where the box is, right? It's like we've been doing all the traditional research, and now we have to use other techniques that we don't know much about, and it's quite complex, and it's expensive, and so on and so forth. But we eventually thought that the way to deal with this situation was actually going for it, and going for it in a very serious way. Let's say not only doing, a few experiments and research here and there to see how things are going, but we just bet on it. And the idea was, yeah, let's try to, if we really want to go farther, and eventually, if we're lucky, get some breakthrough research, we have to be serious about this. And that was the final conclusion. So what we did is, like in that film, right? Okay, let's take the pill and let's go for it. Let's see what can we get when doing this research on neuroscience and tourism. So we ended up with that path that we are starting now. And as I was mentioning at the beginning, the idea of this presentation is to share our path, what we've been doing, what we are doing, what we're planning to do, and just discuss that openly with you guys, and especially with the young researchers that are joining us today. So that concept of neurotourism is applying basically neuroscience techniques to tourism, to this very relevant and significant phenomenon that is tourism, and that we were previously also mentioning why it is also important in terms of neuroscience. So yeah, we started with that idea. We first did a few research analysis about current literature, how our concepts, these techniques were related to other techniques, also about the evolution, how those techniques were being used, and to what topics they've been applied. So we were a little bit having an idea about the context and evolution of the different techniques applied in tourism. Neuromarketing techniques, neuroscience techniques applied to tourism. And we got a good picture of the situation at that point, and what were the main let's say topics, challenges, and to address at that point. But we also realized that it was very dynamic, and it was kind of difficult to stick to one conclusion. So because of that dynamic nature, again, we thought, okay, we have to go with an idea that allows us to keep evolving. And that's why we thought we need a lab. We need actually laboratory to being able to catch up, to being able to be updated, to be able to keep growing in our research, and not just doing a few experiments here and there. And then related to the methodological integration with the theoretical frameworks, we thought, okay, we had to keep learning, keep evolving in our in the use of these techniques, and eventually we will be able to add, if we are lucky, some meaningful and relevant value to the theoretical framework, the theoretical literature in tourism. So for instance, this is a video. I'm not sure if you can watch it or not. Were you able to watch the video? No, right? It was not okay. Anyhow,
yes,
as you can see, didn't work, right?
It's not working.
Okay. Anyhow, it's the idea is that you see that the guy is going to throw the dog, and apparently it looks. What do you think? What does it looks like? He's going to throw it where? And because of the sound, it's like kind of air and so on. It looks like it's going to throw it from the air, right, to the floor. But actually, it's just like 30 centimeters high, and that's snow. So it's nothing, right? It's just on the backyard. But it's an optical illusion, right? The idea behind this video that it's not running, it's not working, is that yeah, the way we perceive, obviously, it's sometimes biased, and when we connect this with the theoretical framework, and we all are familiar with the tourist gaze and that theory, yeah, we had the preliminary idea that if we were able to better understand the tourist perception and all the process, that selective attention by the tourists, eventually we can also add a contribution to that framework, in this case related to that tourist gaze, because we are actually able to better understand that gaze in a very more precise way and a psychological way, if you want, and not only the sociological part. So yeah, this is just the example. But as I was mentioning before, the conclusion is that we needed a lab, and that's why we ended up investing a lot of time and a lot of effort in developing the laboratory. That laboratory is connecting, of course, neuroscience, tourism, and technology, because you need new technologies to be able to analyze with these techniques the customer and the tourist experience. In doing so, we ended up with that idea of the lab to better understand the emotions, to better understand the customer experience, and to make some progress. So we analyzed that idea, we explored that idea of neurotourism and how could we implement it. So first, it was clear we need a lab. A lab is not only a place where you find different equipment, but it's also an atmosphere that allows you to conduct natural experiments, field experiments, and different kinds of experiments. And it's also a hub in a way that can connect people, connect researchers from our own institution and from other institutions. We also had some clear conclusions that we have to focus on the digital content because it's growing and it's becoming more and more relevant every day, that digital content, and how that content connect with the tourist experience. And in addition, because it's in our core sustainability, we are our research center, remember, is Tourism and Sustainable Development Center. Yeah, sustainability was clearly our core, so it has to be there, and to develop that project as a network. And by network, I mean working with different researchers, working with different centers, different stakeholders from the industry, private, public, and so on and so forth. So it has to be a network, no matter what. That's why I'm very happy to share with Cintur this presentation. We already had some preliminary discussions, and that can be a very interesting work and cooperation, working together in doing this kind of research. So yeah, we started applying different techniques, of course, eye tracking, both wearable and screen-based, analyzing emotions with using face coding, but also EEG, electroencephalography, and different, skin galvanic response, heart rate, and all that stuff. The same applies for XR, virtual reality and extended reality, because we thought that it was important to understand not only that social construction that we build in our mind, but nowadays we also have that parallel extended reality world that is influencing in a very relevant way that construction that we make as a tourist. All in all, integrating the different analysis and being able to monitor all that information and have integrated conclusions out of those analyses. So we developed 4 main areas in our laboratory, the experimentation room, that is a classic setup for a lab, let's say. The immersive room that we focus on gastronomy, because again, we think it's a very relevant experience and very transformative. Besides, it happens at least 3 times a day when the tourist travels to our destination and so on. And there is a lot of elements integrated into that food consumption. It's something that goes inside the body. You use all your senses. There is a cultural layer of information into that process. So many reasons that were driving us to integrate gastronomy. So we have that 360 room, that immersive room that we call EmoFood. We have the extended reality room to analyze that parallel experience that happens. It can be virtual, totally virtual, as you know, or it can be just with augmented reality, where you add different layers of information. And also the open lab that allows us to conduct natural experiments in real scenarios, hotels, museums, and so on and so forth. So here are some just pictures about our lab. This is the XR, the virtual reality. This is the immersive room, but we observe it from outside. And also you can get the integration with, and in this case, with eye tracking and the motion recognition. This is also the video wall, where we interact with different stimuli to see how the reaction of the customer is, the person just watching that content. We also integrate the vending machines that we have in the lab. So we are conducting experiments to see how can the different stimuli change the consumer behavior with these machines. We are actually starting with one experiment related to coffee, and the other one related to health snacks. Let's say how to increment the use of fruit instead of chocolates and other, let's say, non-healthy snacks. So we have an agreement with the vending machine, and we are conducting those experiments in our own lab. This is the EmoFood immersive room. And in here, as you can see, you can generate all kinds of atmospheres. This is just an example. So you can be eating a seed-related dish, and you can generate that atmosphere, not only by the image, 360 image around the room, but also with the sound, of course, the smell. We have the aromas that we project to generate that immersion using your 5 senses, right? So this is also an example. Here we were analyzing like a real, let's say, a human generated content, and this is an artificial intelligence generated content. So 2 kind of different contents that we analyze in that room. We also use the augmented reality, in this case with this snack. And when they scan that code, they get information about that dish, about the ingredients of that snack, and also related to nutritional information. So again, analyzing that. By the way, this is the visit of Ferran Adrià to our lab. He was also keen on knowing what we were doing there. As you know, Ferran Adrià is quite a famous chef that was transforming the gastronomy, right, in the world. So yeah, he was also visiting our lab and connecting that. The open lab, it's in this case we conducted also an agreement with another island. In this case is Lanzarote, and we developed we start to develop research with them in this island, applying that concept of open lab. Initially, this was a presentation with a demonstration and so on, but we can conduct natural experiments. We have been applying that to different events. In this case, this is a cultural event, analyzing again with these techniques the impact. Here's just one person analyzing, for instance, digital content. We also apply that to a real experience. This is in a farming market, and they have like a map, and they are navigating into that market. And then we had a wine tasting and a cheese tasting, and we were analyzing their the attention of the tourists when they were visiting this market all around. This is a different experiment. This is related to garbage, and how when you add information related to recycling, where each item goes, and you also add some gamification, what is the impact of that stimuli in their behavior. This is, I mean, most of you're familiar with, but this is just an example of the eye tracking technique. This is just a user experience analysis through the website. In this case, the person is just surfing the website and searching for some information about that accommodation. And that's the analysis that you get when you use eye tracking, right? So you can follow their gaze through their navigation. In addition to that, this is the same analysis as before, but now you integrate also the emotional response. So here you can see in an integrated way, not only the eye tracking and the gaze, but also the emotional reaction of the customer when doing that experiment. Okay. Those are just some examples of the conclusions that you get. This is a heat map. Basically, as you know, you can measure the saccades. I mean, you can measure the attention. You can identify areas of interest, so you can see what actually is catching their attention, how that attention is changing from one content to another. This is the gaze plot, so you can follow here the different path, how they start to navigate, and then what is the next attention area, and so on. This is related to the face coding analysis, and of course the different emotions that you can analyze. And this is also the EEG that you integrate in the same analysis. And in this case, this was an A/B test, analyzing two different contents and seeing what was the emotional reaction when you analyze the EEG KPIs. So this is another experiment we're conducting related to wine, with the wine bottles, the shape of the bottle, the color of the bottle, the tags of the bottle, the description of the grape. So, you know, combining all that information. This is a different example related to events and sponsorship. So where the attention is related to the different sponsors. This is related to sustainability. What are the messages that they actually are paying attention to in terms of sustainability? It can be if you do some recycling, or if all the consumption is local, you know, different messages, and see what are the messages that are catching their customer attention. This is another experiment where we are communicating sustainability in tourism. This is part of the PhD work from Mireia Morgana, and it's about how to communicate sustainability. So we've done it with pictures and also with words. I mean, pictorial content and just textual as a content. In this case, it's quite a challenge, as you know, because you can either over or under communicate your sustainability actions, and both are they have a negative impact. I mean, they cannot do the greenwashing, but you also have to let the people know that you're doing some relevant actions in terms of sustainability, if that is the case. So how do you communicate it in the best way? So we were analyzing all the connections. And here I'm also integrating the social network analysis, the destination image analysis, I mean, the customer experience, all the stuff we were mentioning at the beginning somehow has been relevant to get to this point. So in this case, we analyze the associations of the different words that they use to understand sustainability in tourism. And we analyze the network with the connections of all those words and associations. That was the first part that we've been concluding. And now we are using EEG to understand how those connections work, and being able to actually pre-test how things change when you use one word or another from that network of words that are associated with sustainability. In other words, what is the best way to communicate using text your sustainability actions? And we've done also some experiments with the pictorial content when you use pictures to communicate your sustainability actions. And finally, we also thought that it was important to scale this project up. So what we did is developing a European project co-funded by European Union with different labs. In this case, Hagahelia in Finland, and GSET in Veneto in Italy. And we also integrate other organizations. And what we do is analyzing the digitalization process for 100 European tourism SMEs. We have been conducting those analyses, neuromarketing analysis, to these companies to better understand the customer experience with their digital content, to help them through this digital transition, and also to being able to keep learning about the real application of these techniques in the tourism context. So we started with 3 clusters, Finland, Canary Islands, and Veneto. So that makes 60 SMEs in total. And then we added 40 more. That makes 100 SMEs that we are working with. So we started with 3 labs, as you say, as I said before, different, working in 6 countries at the beginning, and adding more countries in this research. So we select the SMEs, we conduct the diagnosis, we did the neuromarketing techniques and analysis, and now we've built a digital hub where they have options for to share best practices, training, coaching, and so on. And eventually we will keep monitoring the evolution and the key KPI indicators, for those SMEs. So yeah, that's a little bit what we've been doing, mapping the available technologies, connecting them with service providers. So this is quite a very practical approach and pragmatic approach, in addition to the research part that I was mentioning before. And the labs are connecting the SMEs with the technical solutions and the service providers. We also add some financial support so they can invest with that funding. in improving and applying the recommendations and guidelines that we will provide, we are providing after the neuromarketing neuroscience analysis. So that's a little bit about this project. And yeah, I think that's about my presentation today. And I think now it's time for yeah, questions or comments, and some food for thought. Yeah. So thank you very much for paying attention to this presentation.
Sergio, thank you so much for sharing with us these fantastic projects. I would say it's amazing the work you have been done, and it's time for some interaction with those who are attending and listening with attention your presentation. It is a huge project.